Hey, it's Coach Anderson here again from Mississippi Public Broadcasting Online, U.S. History from 1877 to present. Today we're going to pick up with, once again, unit number 7, the Roaring 1920s. We're going to pick up with lesson 2 today, the economic prosperity of the 1920s. So we'll go ahead and jump into it. What we want you to do, of course, is we always tell you we have a unit focus question. This focus question is to guide what we're going to talk about for this particular unit. And that question is, what characteristics of the 20s made it distinctly different than the previous decades in the United States? Once again, we won't answer that question now, but we will answer that question, of course, at the end of the unit. Today we're going to look at our vocabulary. The vocabulary terms that we have are disposable income, mass communication, consumerism, mass production, assembly line. You know, as we go through the lesson, what we'll try to do is identify some of those terms, of course, and give you an explanation of what they are. But you can always go back, of course, and look them up yourself and find your own definition. What we're also going to have today is our lesson focus question. That lesson focus question says, what impact did the rise of industries have on American society during the 1920s? We will answer the lesson focus question at the conclusion of the lesson today. What we're going to do is look at our do now activity. Our do now activity, of course, is what we do, of course, to kind of get warmed up, get ready, of course, to learn. And this is a journal topic. And once again, if you have a journal, go ahead, take your journal out and write this particular topic down. It says, Google the term labor-saving device and list as many labor-saving devices and appliances that you have in your house. So go ahead, take a few moments and do that. And we'll come back in a few moments and we'll find out what exactly it is that you wrote down. Well, you should have had enough time that you were able to go through and identify what a labor-saving device is. A labor-saving device is any device, of course, that is created to make your job easier and quicker and more efficient in most cases. When you think about it, there are any number of labor-saving devices that your mom probably would appreciate, of course, that are already in the household, because prior to having these devices, most of these things had to be done by hand. For instance, the washing machine, laundry, there was usually, for most people, that was a laundry day, vacuum cleaners. So when you look at some of these types of devices, what we're talking about are things that made people's lives a little bit easier in terms of the work they had to do, either around the house or even around the workplace. What we're going to do, of course, is go and jump into the lesson and look at some of the things that resulted from the 1920s prosperity. The 1920s saw industrial innovation to improve efficiency and mass production. New industries that emerged in the 20s included the aircraft industry, mass communications industry with radio, the automobile industry with Henry Ford, the appliance and consumer products like vacuums, irons, washing machines, et cetera. Those are some of those labor-saving devices, of course, that we talked about in the Do Now activity. Here we have a picture of Henry Ford. Henry Ford, of course, is one of the most well-known American industrialists. He came up with the use of the assembly line to mass produce the Model T. An interesting story about Henry Ford, when asked what color you could get the Model T in, he said you can get it in any color you want as long as it is black, because making just a black car, that took out one step, of course, in the process. So one color, one car, Henry Ford, the assembly line. That takes us to consumerism of the 1920s. Well, during the 1920s, because of the prosperity of the 20s, most Americans had more disposable income. That means income, of course, that they didn't have to spend on bills. It could be income that they could use on leisure, of course, and gadgets if they wanted. So in the 1920s, we're going to have a consumer boom. And that is something called consumerism, where there is a movement to buy as much as you can, in some cases buying more than you could afford. Because we're going to find that one of the problems with the 1920s is going to be the advent of credit. And because of that credit, we're going to find it's going to get a lot of Americans, of course, to live beyond their means, and it's going to cause a few problems in the 1930s, specifically in 1929 leading into the 1930s. Difficult for farmers. One of the things that we said, that most people in the 1920s enjoyed some significant prosperity. The one group that was left out of the economic prosperity of the 1920s was American farmers. And the reason being is because when World War I was over with, the farmer was producing a great deal that could be sold, of course, overseas to Europe, to American allies. But now that the war is over with, the farmer has produced too much, so there's an oversupply, and the prices for those crops, of course, have fallen out of this world. So in looking at it, the American farmer does not do very well during the 1920s, and the federal government didn't do him any favor either, because one of the things the federal government did is they passed the Ford and McCumber Act, which was a tariff, and what it basically did is raise tariffs. So if we raise tariffs, of course, on European goods being brought into the country, then it would make sense that they would raise their tariffs so that American goods going overseas would have to pay those taxes. So because of the high tariff, the American farmer suffers even more. That takes us to the lesson focused question today. It says, what impact did the rise of new industries have on American society during the 1920s? New industries created labor-saving and luxury products which caused people to buy on credit to keep up with their neighbors. You ever heard that term, keeping up with the Joneses? Well, that's kind of probably where this came from. New products made lives easier, particularly for women, giving them time to pursue life outside the home. That concludes lesson 2. And in conclusion of lesson 2, what we find is that when you look at the American home during the 1920s, we're going to find that it's going to be a more modern home with a lot more products that people, of course, can purchase. And because of that, that's going to lead to this consumer boom, which in essence also gives us credit and the use of credit. And that's going to cause a few problems later. Once again, this is America's history, which means it's your history. Do your own research. Don't take my word for it. And we'll see you next time at Mississippi Public Broadcasting Online, U.S. History. Have a great day.